I think it's just this like honesty that that I just am incapable of muting in any way or even softening. And for some reason that's really novel to people.
One of Forbes' richest self-made women.
She is a serial entrepreneur, content creator.
Being generous can be selfish in a way because you're like, whoa, I've made an impact. That's so cool. This is, when it's no sweat, it's the best feeling in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have Sophia Amoruso, the legendary Sophia Amoruso, good friend of mine here today on Fearlessly Living with Arian Simone. That is interesting. Did you say lack of softness or something where there was a softness?
Yeah, like I can't mute myself. Like I'm too lazy to make things up. Like I'm actually just too.
She's like, too lazy.
Like
it's not
a quality. I just don't.
She's like, because that takes energy.
I'm
to
a bad
make
actor,
up.
and this shouldn't. Like this is just. I feel like it's not that special because it's just being.
But it
human.
is. You have an it factor, and not that I don't want to say that everybody doesn't have an it factor, but you have a serious it factor.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, I kind of want to talk about you, but I know you're not doing a lot of that right now.
Feel free. We can go back and forth.
Well, what do you say to people when they tell you the same thing, that you're a force and that you're iconic and that you're like you never back down and more comes at you and you've hit, you've set precedents and you've raised a ton of money and you've, had an insane origin story where you pulled yourself out of the primordial ooze and here we are, Yes. What do you say to people who tell you that? Are you like, yes,
oh my gosh.
I am. You might be capable of that and it's kind of cool if you are, but it's like, I wish I woke up and agreed with that and I don't disagree. I just don't think about, I don't like look in the mirror and say like, whatever, what's that song? It's like, you're a bad bitch or whatever. I don't remember. But
I think, how should I put it? I do believe in authenticity. I do, and not in an arrogant way. I know I have an it factor. I don't apologize for that. I know that there is something unique about me of why I've been given this place in this earth to create impact. And I think I have known that since I was little. And I have carried that with me and walked with that unapologetically. So I will say that. But there is something you could teach me right now. Because what I haven't had to deal with up until now is something that you have faced seamlessly. And everybody's like, Arian, you're handling this with such grace. It's no secret. We have talked about this on more than one occasion, about this federal lawsuit that I'm dealing with. You have handled public scrutiny. You have handled public controversy. You have handled that and just come out on the other side. And maybe you have been affected. I don't know. Talk about that to me. Counsel me right now.
No, again, people are so in awe when you don't go away. And it's like, what else am I going to do? It's my job. Like, part of my persona is, my job. Like, it's an asset. I'm going to stick around. I'm not going to go on retreat for a year and find myself like that's expensive. And
that's expensive.
I've got like 3 dogs. So there's a lot to do, or leaking a roof. So again, it kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning, which is like, people are so impressed when you stick around and when things are hard publicly. But guess what? In everybody's private life, they can't go anywhere. It's their life. Like, are you going to delete your Instagram?
By anybody's opinion?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? What are you
talking
about? What are you talking about?
You don't seem
what
like
are you talking about? That's crazy. I don't. Maybe I have something wrong. Maybe I have something wrong with my. I don't know. I don't. Maybe I'm just like a stone wall.
So you're not affected by anybody's opinion?
No, I am constantly affected by other people's opinions.
Serious?
Are you kidding me? Yes. And like, yeah, people have like followed me, but there's also still like there's still snarky stuff that comes out. And when there's people you don't know saying stuff about you, you're like, wait, is that what other people think? Like, that's an indication of something. Well, how far does that spread? And is that what people think when I walk in a room? I don't think so, but you don't know. but that happens when you're not in the public eye as well, right? You walk into a room and people are going to size you up depending on a whole bunch of factors. And then also like, how you carry yourself and what their trauma is, like all kinds of shit. And their opinion is based on their problems, you know?
Because like lately I even noticed that you're holding poker games.
Yeah.
Is it because you got a poker face?
No, I think it just confuses people that I don't have a poker face. I'm like, okay. So no, it's because I like winning and you can win really quickly. It takes a lot longer to win doing what we do.
That is
and I
true.
like learning. I don't like losing money, which I did this week, but I'm not losing too much money. And it's about, you know, the people that play a lot more than me. They're like, it's not about like your last game. It's about the year. You know, if you're afraid of like losing money, this is not for you. And that's the case.
That's like life.
Right. And so it's just like, I'm now starting to track the full year. Like, okay, it was a $200 or $400 buy-in. I lost this much, but guess what? Like it doubled in the last game, but shit, I lost again. Well, how's it going to shake out over the course of the year? It's an interesting lesson for the course of our lives. And we don't really think about it as an average, do we?
You're correct. Because when you're in the moment, you're in the moment.
Yeah.
It's not like I heard somebody one time, they said they don't look at their life in years, they look at their life in decades. Because then they don't get caught up on, okay, win or lose. You can see the whole theme of that decade. And that makes it so much easier.
Yeah. Do you think that far ahead?
If you have a question for the Fearlessly Living with Arian Simone podcast show, be sure to get on the website, submit your question. If you would like to be a part of our community, please join us, because guess what? You have an opportunity to be on the show. Now back to today's episode. I did after I heard that. So I'm going to tell you recently what happened. I saw a girlfriend of mine post on social media. She's like, have you made your goals for 2024? And mind you, I was like, this is coming out in 2024. But I was like, wait a minute. I haven't. Because a couple years prior, I made a commitment that I wouldn't put that pressure on myself, that I would view my life in a decade. And honestly, when I did that, I actually, in those couple years, achieved more than I probably ever had, just because I didn't have that pressure on me. And not that that's for everybody. I think some people probably need the discipline of the short-term goals to stay on track. But I'm a very focused individual. I'm a very disciplined individual. So giving myself the grace of, I can accomplish all of this over 10 years. It was like kind of floating.
What do you want? What do you want? And I mean, what is that?
Oh my God.
10 years. You don't have to answer that question. That's the hardest. I'm going to be like 39. Like I'm going to be like 50. Like how much money? I'm like, God, how much money do I need to retire? Like my dogs.
Oh gosh,
so
you and the
expensive.
dog, Sophia.
No, I'm kidding. But like, yeah, mortality starts to set in.
Well, I have done that. Like as far as financial planning, I have set out, okay, what do I want when I'm 55?
Yeah.
And am I taking all the steps to get there? Yes. So I make those kind of plans.
Do you have smart people guiding you?
I believe in staying around smart people.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And then you don't know they're dumb until they reveal themselves.
That is true. That is very true.
Everybody's smart until they like, blow it.
That is so true.
With your money.
But I believe in keeping good counsel.
Yeah.
And even in the businesses that you and I both have the same as running venture funds, you introduced me to one of my mentors, Jeff Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe in that in general.
Yeah.
And since I switched to the funds, I do want to talk about that.
Okay.
I remember when I first started telling people I wanted this VC fund for women of color, I was at a Girlboss rally.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that.
You didn't? All this
I didn't know it was
time?
like the first time.
When I started vocalizing it,
Yeah.
And I told Tracy Gray, and she ended up on our advisory board. So that was like, the very first time. It was already in my heart. I've wanted to do it since forever, pretty much. I wanted to be the business investor I had been looking for when I was in college. I just didn't know it was going to show up in the form of venture. Mm-hmm. And you had so many people from the VC community at your event. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting the nudge now to start vocalizing this. So I started to vocalize it, and I got my first advisor at your event.
Yeah. Isn't it so funny that when you just say something, you're kind of on the hook to do it?
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, it's like embarrassing.
Very much so.
So like vocalizing it and putting it out to your friends, like you look kind of like you're navel gazing if you don't actually start taking steps to do it. There's a good pressure that comes with telling people you're going to do something, but at the same time, you know, a lot of it's like, well, this is what we plan, like as a, you know, business and PR or whatever. Sometimes it's better to talk about what you have
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I knew if I did that, I had to also raise capital, and I knew I was going to need help. And you were like, Arian, this is going to be hard. You're like, but I will support you. I was like, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do whatever I can. And I didn't, you know, I had relationships with a lot of people in the venture world, but I wasn't tapping into that they were friends because I had, I don't know, been in that orbit because I had raised venture capital in 2012, you know?
Ooh, in 2012.
I met Jeff Jordan in 2012. He flew to LA to Nasty Gal's offices.
In 2012. Yeah.
So I have like really long-standing relationships, but not because I was, you know, working with them or had a fund. So it's cool to see that harvest in some way before I began to like harvest it for myself, and kind of accidentally realize, wow, I do have a ton of relationships in this world of really smart people who can also be mentors. Yeah,
you definitely do.
Yeah,
and I want to thank you for when you said, "Oh, I'm going to help you." It wasn't lip service. I mean, it was a weekend, and I want to say you were firing off emails. I was sitting there in front of my laptop. You were like, meet my friend, da-da-da-da-da-da, meet my friend, da-da-da-da. And I was just like, oh my gosh. We were up at night. I was like, okay. I was like, just the genuineness in that.
Yeah.
And just your generosity. Have you always been a generous soul?
I mean, you can only be as generous as what you have to offer. But
everybody doesn't offer what they have to offer.
I mean, I didn't. Like, if someone's like, can I borrow your shirt? I was like, no, I don't have that many shirts, and you're probably not going to give it back. Like, my scuzzy friend. Like, no. You know, when you have, it's easier to be generous when it doesn't take away from your life, because, you know, there was a time that I lived in scarcity and being generous was hard. So no, I'm an only child. Like, I'm a relatively selfish person. Half my career is talking about myself. Naturally, no. But as I've gotten older, to see all of these assets just sitting around, whether it's an introduction or experience that I can lend to a founder, or the ability to raise money from people and invest it in really awesome companies, or amplify the founders that I'm investing in and the products and things that they're creating to people who are actually excited about them. And so it is, you know, it's generous to them. It's not promotion. That's amazing. Like, it's just so fun to throw that around and see what I can do with it. And it is generous because, like, I've spent a lot of my career extracting value, created a lot of value in different ways for a lot of women, but learning, like, just like I needed the intros and I still need intros, but mostly I'm just trying to use my inventory, which is no longer dresses, it's no longer conferences, it's my relationships, it's my experience, it's my understanding of the users of the stuff that my founders are building products for. And yeah, that's generous and it feels really good. But being generous can be selfish in a way, because you're like, whoa, I've made an impact. That's so cool. This is, when it's no sweat, it's the best feeling in the world. And it's no sweat to send an email. Like, it's no sweat to give somebody advice. Like, it's fun because it makes me feel good about myself.
I tell people giving is the best gift you could ever receive.
Sometimes asking is a great gift.
Oh, I like that.
Because I'm like, Arian, I need advice. And you're like, well, I know. Thank you. You think I know something. You just told me that I'm smart. Well, let me tell you. And you feel great about yourself, right? I'm not going to ask you questions just for fun so you feel good about yourself. But I have plenty for you.
I like that, though. Sometimes asking is the best gift. I like that, too. But life taught you generosity.
Life and time. And I think, amazing things I've been, earned or been given or whatever, that I am able to share. you know, and the older I get, the more fun it is to help other people do things that I don't like doing.
So the name
like build companies.
Your venture fund is Trust Fund.
Trust Fund.
And it wasn't probably till like the day after you had told me, I was like, okay, I get it. And why didn't you get it immediately, Arian?
It's funny.
I said, because so often VCs have a reputation of being untrustworthy, or investors are giving bad deals. And when you put the name on their trust, was that your intention?
Kinda, but it's just a funny name. So yes, I mean, there's trust that goes into all of this, into letting someone invest in your company, into a founder telling me they're going to build something big, an LP investing in me, me, you know, choosing the right LPs. I'm trusting them to a certain extent. So yes, but also like I don't have a trust fund. You know, it's partially about building your own trust fund, and also it's just very funny, and people are like, oh my God, when I heard that name for the first time, it's like, you know, it's like Girlboss. Men weren't like, oh my God, this is the best name ever. I was like Nasty Gal, and they were like, oh, but like trust fund, they're like, oh God, I wish I thought of that.
No, like, I had that moment.
Really gratifying I was like, about that. I'm not sure why.
No, it does. I'm like, I love Fearless, but I was like, dang.
Yeah,
I was like,
funny.
that was a good one. You're right. The play on words with having a trust fund to pass to your family. It was you and genius. And that's what I mean by that special factor, that it factor that only you would think of. And then you're a branding genius.
Thanks.
Like every time I see any of your campaigns, I'm like, oh, she has no clue how drawn I am to this. Because see, in my head, I think I'm a 1950s like pinup girl sometimes. So I was like, all of your campaigns, from the airline campaign. Business class and flight. And I was just like, oh. I was like, this was it. I know you are enjoying this episode. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Now back to the episode.
It's just fun. It's just fun and funny and punny, and there's levity. I don't try not to take myself seriously. I try not to take what I, you know, the way I present things seriously, because people are attracted to that. When you're kind of funny or self-deprecating, or, you know, show up and listen to your audience, listen to the person that you're interviewing, they gravitate to you. If you have a brand that's like, you know, so aspirational or so unrelatable that people are like, oh God, I wish I could afford that, you're leaving out so many people. It sounds like really boring and sad to run a business like that. But when you create something that invites people to be part of the joke, but also give them value at the same time, it's a great feeling.
No, I love that. I want to ask you this question, as far as I was watching your IG, and it was one of the videos, and you were talking about having difficult discussions. You were listing a whole bunch of things, but that one thing stood out. You were like having the ability to have hard conversations. On the subject, you're like, which video? What was this?
No, I remember.
Oh, okay.
I was just like, what's that sound?
Oh, okay. Yes. I was like, let me ask you this. When it comes to the subject even of race, so many people view that as like a hard conversation. To me, it's never seemed to be a hard conversation for you, whether it was race, racism, or anything of that nature. Why is that an easy discussion for you?
I'm just a curious person. It's like I try to be empathetic. I'll never understand your experience, but I can as much as I'm capable, and that's like interesting to me. And I don't know, maybe I really don't know. I'm curious, and I think I'm around enough people who have talked about race where I know how to have a conversation about it. But it's like my conversations, I don't want to keep, you know, going into this, whatever, I know what you call it, like fragility, I don't know what you call it, but it's like I'm just like, I can only do my best, which is like, okay, I have an amazing friend. She's got this thing going on. Let's talk about it. Like, what does that mean? And it affects so many other people. So it's like having a conversation with you or someone, when I had my podcast, being able to amplify the experiences of other people, like I said, in the same way where I express, you know, I show my challenges or whatever, it's all public. Like when people see your challenge or they see the challenge of another woman of color, they're like, you know, for them, they see themselves and they see what's possible, or they see what's challenging because you're willing to talk about it. And the more people that are able to give you a platform for that, where you're not just talking to like a void, you know, where people are interested and it's like a conversation that, you know, whatever, I don't know. It's like fun, and it's also a gift. And
no, I think that's great. And I think empathy and curiosity, I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. You were like empathy and curiosity. I think that was the nail on the head. Now, for everybody listening, I would say that we are the queen of pivots. Queens of pivots. This is something that we both have been able just to transition, take on a new industry. But what advice would you give to that person who's listening that they need something to be encouraged about as they're transitioning in their life?
I mean, everything's always in flux. So when you think that things aren't changing, they are. And then when they do change, you're only really seeing it happen. And sometimes that change is uninvited. But on the other side, things will most often be better. I like to cast myself a year from now and be like, oh my God, remember when my roof was leaking? And be like, ha ha ha, that was such a nightmare. Right now it's a nightmare. What you're dealing with. I don't know how long
it's not
from
a
now.
Daydream.
Hopefully soon from now, you know, you'll a year or 5 years, like if there's a way you can kind of like imagine yourself in a future where this shit's over with.
Yes.
And be like, I can't believe that happened. That was insane. Like there's going to be a time where that happens.
Yes.
For most of us, right? There are things, you know, death, sickness.
Out of control.
There are things that categorically perspective becomes a lot harder. But most things you will have perspective.
I definitely love it. Do you have any wellness practices? What I mean by that, I'm just staying mentally well. Do you have a therapist? Do you have any wellness practices? You are a giant and a force in this world. So I want to know about what is helping keeping you sane.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mess, and don't feel sane right now. Yoga really grounds me, and I know that, I don't know, I feel like that's what people put on like dating like it's not that, it's like walks on the beach, right? There's no big secret, but just being in a room and stretching and being like, oh my God, I sat at my desk all day, this feels so good, and getting out of there and being like, whoa, my hips actually don't, like they sit forward, that's crazy. Like I'm going to this place that has yoga classes, and included in the membership is like float tanks and saunas and cryotherapy. And that one. It's like an ice bath.
Oh, I have heard of that one. Yes, I have heard of that.
And I'm not a masochist. I don't like invite pain, and but it's not painful. It's actually not as hard as I thought it would be. And it's kind of awesome to end yoga and do that. So I've been kind of judgmental of the people who are like ice bath biohacking, you know, whatever, people who like, you know, wake up and journal and like have the perfect thing. But the glimpses of that I have into it, and when I do some of those things, like they make a really big impact.
They do.
Right now I'm spending a lot of time on my phone. There's a lot of browser tabs open. I'm not getting enough sleep. My boyfriend's out of town, so he's gone, and I'm like, I can just work all night. It's not like, what do you want to do for dinner? It's like, I ate leftover pizza before I came here, you know? So there's no like secret, like I'm staying alive, but I don't know. I could definitely be doing a better job.
Well, thank you, Sophia.
Thanks for having me. It's always so fun on a Sunday.
I know.
Beautiful
but this
Sunday.
Time was just so worth it. I just wanted to talk about life in general and get your insight to be able to pour out to other people. I think you're such a gem and a gift to this world.
I feel the same way about you.